You're listening to Community Voice PHL, an award-winning talk show that informs, engages, and inspires. Hey, thanks again for listening to Community Voice PHL Talk Show, a show that informs, engages, and inspires. Community Voice is an award-winning show that highlights the value-based programs and services that people of color are doing all across the nation. We'll inform you about events that are happening throughout the city, and we'll have engaging interviews with inspiring people who are working to make a difference to build caring and prosperous communities all across the nation. So again, thanks for tuning in to Community Voice PHL, a show that informs, engages, and inspires. So excited as always to be on the air and on the YouTube channels, just to be able to share with you some inspiring, good, uplifting information, to talk with some dope people that we always do from week to week. And if you're listening for the first time, again, we appreciate you. If you're returning, listening, or viewer, we definitely thank you for doing so again. You want to follow us, though? All of our platforms that we're on have the same handle, so it'll be easy if you find us. We're mostly landing on Instagram, and that's Community Voice PHL, and our Facebook, Community Voice PHL as well. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is Community Voice PHL Talk Show. And this episode is sponsored by our Apple Podcast, where you can get informed, engaged, and inspired on the go. So you can subscribe to our Apple Podcast, search us out, find us at Community Voice PHL Talk Show. And again, get informed, engaged, and inspired through our Apple Podcast. So again, thank you all for taking care to tune in and take part and support us in those efforts. We greatly appreciate it. And we're in our 9th season, so we're really excited for the fact that, we're continuing to just thrive and grow and sharing information about things that help us out throughout the day and throughout the city and throughout the nation, because we've got some partners and people we've interviewed all across the 48 continuous states. So we're excited about that. We're excited about the guest that I'm going to bring on, a young brother doing some phenomenal work in the space of anger management and emotional wellness, Kenneth L. Bourne, author, speaker, motivator, and change maker. Excited to bring him on, talking about the fight for life, helping our youth, and even just helping us manage our emotions. And I know that can be a challenging moment in these stressful times that we live in, but he's going to talk about some things, how we can manage our emotions, particularly focusing on our youth so that they can be able to navigate through some of the challenges that they're facing. So before we get into that, though, like always, we got to give you some informing information. So Philadelphia, we are really excited because the election season just passed, and Cheryl Parker, former city council member, was elected the Democratic Party nominee for mayor of the city of Philadelphia. Now, this is historic on so many accounts because, first of all, this will be the 100th mayor of the city of brotherly love. But then also, as it normally turns out in Philadelphia elections, the Democratic Party nominee in the elections is often the same individual who wins the general election for mayor. So it's almost a shoo-in that Cheryl Parker will be the next mayor of Philadelphia. And if that plays itself out accordingly, she will be the first Black woman to be the mayor of the city of Philadelphia. So we're excited about that. We're excited about the fact that Cheryl Parker, former council member Cheryl Parker, will soon be Mayor Cheryl Parker. And she's done a breadth of work throughout the city through her tenure as city council. And she's bringing that same experience, that same effort, that same energy of change and impact for safety for our community to her position as mayor. So we're excited about that. So that's a historic thing happening in the city of Philadelphia. So just wanted to share with you about that. And I'm sure all of you in the tri-state area may have already known that, but some folk who are beyond the tri-state area who are listening, it's an exciting time for us here in Philly. So once we get Cheryl Parker as mayor, and she's really going to do some dramatic things to positively change our communities, our cities for the better, and to help reduce violence, provide opportunities, and keep our city thriving and growing. So kudos to Cheryl Parker, who will be the first Black woman mayor of the city of Philadelphia, and the 100th mayor at that. So it's going to be a good time for Philly in that regard. And also coming up on June the 10th, partnering with Tools for Success, Community Voice, Greater Days Ahead, and the youth summer programs that we have. We're going to have a youth summer resource fair. This will be an opportunity for you to come out and learn more and sign up for summer camp programs, youth jobs and resources, organizations who have mentoring programs, and all different types of opportunities for our youth to sign up and be safe throughout the summer. This is going to take place at Logan Library, and it's going to be from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. And again, more information will be coming, but Tools for Success, in partner with Community Voice and GDA Consulting, Greater Days Ahead, will have a youth summer resource fair at Logan Library, June 10th, from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. And we'll have that information in the show notes so that you can be able to take part and be able to support and bring your young people out to that. And parents, please, it doesn't matter what part of the city you're in, you can always come out and take part in that, sign up for any one of the various programs. And then as Juneteenth comes around, I know a lot of organizations will be having Juneteenth programs, but I just want to give a few shout out for ones that are coming up. And there'll be one Saturday, June 17th. E9 is having their Juneteenth wellness event. It's an opportunity for the whole family to come out with various different types of health screenings, mental and maternal wellness programs, anything to do with your wellness on any level for the whole family. Come on out, Saturday, June 17th, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. That's a Juneteenth event, the wellness event at E9 Tabernacle Baptist Church. And again, the information is 2800 West Cheltenham Avenue, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. June 17th, Juneteenth wellness event that E9 is having. So information will be about that in the notes as well. And also another great event. I know it's another E9 event, but I don't want to make it seem like I'm specifically promoting E9, but they are having another great event, which I think will be an awesome opportunity for our rising juniors and rising seniors. So rising juniors and rising seniors. E9 is partnering with FS Investments for summer internships. This will be a great opportunity for our youth to learn more in the space of finances and investment and workforce opportunities through partnership with FS Investments and E9 Tabernacle Baptist Church for summer intern programs. Again, the program is starting from June 22nd to August 3rd. It's for rising juniors and rising seniors. So they'll have an opportunity to be able to take part in this program. And again, more information about that will be shared in the notes, but just wanted to give that update. So if you're listening online or if you're watching the YouTube, you can check out the notes and we'll have that information about that program as well. And then also, I know it's like prom season, graduation season, but hey, look, if you want to get your hair styled and you want to get your hair together, 7 Styles Hair Company is a luxury hair experience. Go to their website, you look at some of their hair designs and hair care items, and you'll be able to take advantage of that. And for our sisters out there and our mothers and those who are into the hairstyling business or hairstyling is your twist, hey, check out 7 Styles Hair Company. They have a luxury hair experience that you need to take advantage of and be aware of. So just wanted to give them shout outs as well with that. And last but not least, I want to talk about a program that has started at the beginning of the year. I'm honored to host a TV show. It's the first and third Saturdays. It's called Reaction. First and third Saturdays at 10:30 a.m. on Apple TV, Roku, Xfinity, and PhillyCam TV. It's a show that helps us think differently about things that matter most. It's a hard-hitting half-an-hour show that, again, talks about current event and issues with residents, stakeholders, local politicians, and individuals who have opinions about the things that are happening in our community. So it's called Reaction TV, which I'm honored to be able to host first and third Saturdays at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Apple TV, Roku, Xfinity, and PhillyCam TV. Helps us think differently about things that matter most. So I want to just tee those things up as community, and then also just be able to share with you those things that you can be able to be engaged and involved at the same time. So with that being said, now is the time for us to get to the portion we want to talk to the guest that we have on the show. Now, as I mentioned before, Kenneth L. Bourne is a young man who has a dramatic program and a dramatic service that he's offering. And he's also author, Anger Management for Black Male Teens, a practical guide on how to help your teen manage their emotions. And this is a dramatic and interesting study that he's done and wonderful work that he's put together. And I had a chance to meet him at one of the book signing events that was done earlier this year. And he shared with me some of the insights that he was working on and things that he accomplished throughout the course of putting together this book. And I really thought it'd be a great opportunity for me to bring him on the show to share with you more about this book and more about his journey and how our youth can manage their emotions and deal with anger in a way that can, even if you will, be productive in light of some of the challenges that our youth are facing today. So I'm honored and thankful for being able to invite on Community Voice PHL my good friend and author, motivational speaker, and difference maker, Kenneth L. Bourne, to Community Voice PHL Talk Show. Thanks, Kenneth, for being on the show.
No, thanks, Jeff, for having me, man.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So I gave the audience a little bit of background about your work, and of course, I highlighted the book that you have. Give us a little bit more about who you are, your journey, and what brought you to this space.
Yeah, so so a little bit about me. Born and raised in Southwest Philly. I went to BL, so Boys Latin High School, but I was the first graduate from that high school to get a graduate level degree. Went on from there, got my bachelor's at an organization called Denison University, sociology, anthropology, for those folks who will know what that is. Then got my master's from Rutgers. Then got my license in social work, and then after that, I kind of like did a number of organizations, but the focus always seemed to be on Black and brown boys and men. That always was where my heart was lying, and where I just felt like I can create and partner with them to do the most impact. And so, honestly, it really just came about from I worked in Camden for a little bit, for like a year, during the time where they were saying like Camden is one of the most dangerous places to exist, but Camden, New Jersey, and the teenagers there that I connected with made it very clear that there's a need for services, help, ears to listen, a heart for the boys and the young men there. And so I would say that's kind of where the journey started. But it also just started growing up in Philly, right? Like I know the firsthand one mistake, how that can destroy your life for forever. And so, yeah, that's not the journey, but that's a little bit about like why my heart is in it. It's just what I love to do.
Yeah. It definitely shows in a passion, and obviously, it reflects itself in the book as well. And when you're talking about anger management, though, share with our viewers, our listeners, like anger management is not so much just telling the youth, and I'm going to frame it under the aspect of youth, but it can probably, of course, apply to adults as well. But talk about how anger management is not so much telling our youth, don't be angry, because angry is in a lot of contexts a valid emotion, right? It's one of our emotions, and we should have a healthy outlet for that. But talk about how it's not just as simple as saying don't be angry, because I've heard a lot of times people be like, oh, you shouldn't be mad about that, you shouldn't be mad about that. But yeah, some things it's okay to be mad about. So talk about the kind of the balance and difference in that, because you have a unique way of sharing how that should be done.
Yeah, so first to just state, I'm looking at, so in America, adolescence is from 12 to 24. And I like to first preface with that because, it says anger management for Black male teens, but I think what a lot of times we overlook is that, your brain is not technically fully mature until about 24 or 25.
Okay.
And so that goes to show what is the legal age for you to drink.
Yeah.
Right. And and partake in certain things if your brain is not fully developing yet and you still processing and still learning.
Right.
When it comes to emotions, for us as Black boys and men, they have figured out a way to commodify our anger in a lot of ways. Our anger has turned into dollars in a number of institutions, whether that is education, prison systems, healthcare. So it's not always about, for me, one of my chapters in the book is about like get angry and stay angry. Because naturally, right, anger is probably like one of our big and deep emotions, but it's also just communication. So it's trying to communicate. We feel not necessarily, but like we feel not quite content with whatever is happening. And that is what we should be trying to address and understand and get at. What I feel like we have done is focused on anger as a symptom and turned that into a diagnosis now, right? So now the pharmaceutical companies can benefit off of it. And we never fully address the systems that our emotions are lying within. Or for me, I'm always trying to help people see like, So people, we have symptoms, but I try to get them to look at the systems that's upholding the systems that's upholding these symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
And so with anger, when I work with a lot of boys, sometimes I do one-on-one, or even men. A lot of times, right, the response to not be angry is to be numb at that point,
Yeah. Yeah.
because in a sense, you're telling them to not care what they care about, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is that is bothering them or that matters doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a matter of how you express it, and so then they become numb. They kind of shut down. They don't really want to express or communicate or be vulnerable, because all the focus has been put on the symptom, the outward behavior of anger,
Mm-hmm.
and not like, okay, well, how did we get to this point?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not so for me, it's always about understanding the systems at play, understanding that that anger is a valid emotion and it's just communication. And there is some things that you definitely should be angry about, like how you may be treated, right?
Right.
Or you feel like the ways in which your environment don't support who you want to be. Because what people don't understand is, right quick, get a little nerdy on you. So Boys Latin taught us Latin all 4 years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the root word for emotion is emoere, and the word for emotion in Latin is emoere, and that also means, in Latin, that means to move or to drive out. And so emotions are provoking us of some sort of action to do something, or to drive out something. And so if we can tap into what our emotions are trying to communicate, then we can potentially get at creating some sort of action plan that benefits addressing the system, or really addressing what it is that they feel is bothering them, instead of telling them to not be angry, right? Or figure out a different way on how to express some things. But really, what it is their emotion is trying to drive something out of them. And that can be looked at. I don't really look at the words good or bad, but it can be however way you spin it. But I think emotions are very important, as they're just communicating. They're trying to communicate a lot to us.
Yeah, and that's a very powerful thing, how you peeled it back and layered it up. So I thank you for that, because you talked about getting the systems and the symptoms, right? And when we talk about the systems, the symptom and the systems, you did go into detail how we're looking more so at the symptoms, but it's the systems sometimes that, really, if we're not looking at them, then if we're all just highlighting the symptoms and not the systems, it kind of keeps a whole circulation of that anger, in that cycle of false narratives of black men and black boys. So I'm glad that you peeled that out, because, we have to look at how like it was the root of this anger and how we deal with that. Because anger, like you said, like the chapter, get angry and stay angry. There's some things you just got to stay angry about, like systemic racism, depravity in our communities. There's certain things we really, really, really have to be able to reinforce. And so talk about how, that staying angry part, just peel that back and talk about what do you mean by staying angry without, being valid, if you will.
Yeah. So that may be sort of a provocative title, or chapter, but I'm also a meditation teacher. So when I talk to, whether that is organizations or board members or staff, and helping them understand like the folks that they serve, and helping them process what anger looks like, it is never right. I think when we use the word anger, it just automatically draws out potential violence or something that's bad. And being angry, and staying angry, it is more, especially for young adults and teenagers. It is a powerful tool as well, for things like healing or restoring well-being, because it's probably the most clearest sign to show that something is not aligned, whether they are not aligned with the school's policies or principles, or whether it is not aligned with the way in which we always have done things here, right? Or these antiquated ways of just being. And so staying angry, um, can get tricky, but there's ways in which you have to healthily support an individual, and what that looks like. Because so here's the root. Well, here's a root of an issue, right? So for black men and black boys, they have taken our paths to self-legitimize away, right? There's no real power in our communities. We can't really define who we are, or have any resources that support us figuring out who we are. And so being angry, has been a way in which a lot of black men or teens have found a way to really identify uh, and figure out how to survive in these type of environments, or figure out how to be able to communicate something that they don't really know what's happening, because it could be generational, right? But it's a way for them to communicate on a very deep level, because a lot of our deep emotions like anger or love or grief lives within our gut. So then I'm also talking about getting into the body, and
Mm-hmm.
how do you process anger, and what does it look like for your body to process anger. But really going back to your point, I always encourage them to stay angry, but to figure out there's a few steps, and it's really never about violence, for
Mm-hmm.
Black boys and men.
Mm-hmm.
It's just about the unfair treatment, or
Mm-hmm.
not being heard, or always being counted out, right? Or being picked on constantly, or not feeling like there are policies that talk specifically or speak to them. And so, if that's what it is that's bothering you, once we peel back the layers, then that means you want to do something about that. So let's use that energy to drive
Right.
that sort of change.
Yes, and I like the fact that you was able to break that down in that capacity, because anger does have a place, and you just laid it out like how do you get to navigating that in a productive way. And I wanted to have you share that, because when we talk about anger, we got to talk about, in this, if you will, the purpose and the benefits of it, but then also navigate the way, as your book was saying, how do we manage that? How do we manage that? So if a young person comes to you and they're going through a challenge, what is your process? Because of course we want people to get their hands on your book. So without going into too much detail that's within encompassing the book, but what's the process on walking a young person through understanding anger? Because as you mentioned, there's systemics challenges that are out there. There are symptoms which are real, and then there are the experience of the individual, right? And so, what's the process of walking through that? Because teens today are challenged. And you get, before you answer that, though, I want to just get your point on that. I'm gonna circle back to that question, but I want to get your point on this. You mentioned something that was kind of awesome, and I'm going to just kind of have you tease out a little bit more. You talked about how the age 18 to 24, right, is when your brain is developing the most, I believe you said, in that capacity.
24 is technically, they say, is when it's like at its maturest, right? It
Right, at
starts
its maturest. Right. Okay, cool, cool. So with that being the case, if 18 to 24 is when 24 is when your brain's at its maturest, that the legal drinking age is 21, right? So just like, what's your thoughts on that? And I know it's, I want to get too off the rails. What's your thoughts on that? Because I think that's something worth looking into. It's like, wow, you're telling me I could drink when I'm not fully informed of my cognitive skills yet?
Yeah. So I'm a big brain nerd. So I love neurobiology or
Mhm.
interpersonal biology. So understanding like the connection between our brains and our bodies. And then there's some other thing called the mind. So like brain is what we have, the mind is what we create within
Mhm.
culture, societies, classrooms. And so right, there's a lot of things that I think should be in question, right? So like the age of consent,
Mhm.
and then being able to drink at a certain age. The research is there, right? I'm not making this up. The research is there. 12 to 24 is adolescence in America, at least.
Mhm.
I don't, other countries, the different ages to drink is different. But in America, right, you're allowed to drink at 21, right?
Mhm.
But you want to know who I, to kind of play into this. You want to know who I think knows this and benefits financially off of it a lot is car insurance companies.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
they know, right? Your insurance. If you wanted to, like, if my parents didn't want to put me on their insurance when I was young, because car insurance, they know that it's going to go up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why would it go up? Because car insurance banking on us being young,
Mhm.
and our brain's not fully mature, so our decision making is not fully there, and so like we probably gonna bang up the car
Mhm.
more times than not. But yeah, it's definitely something to look into. But my opinion is right, like that age number should change for sure.
Mhm.
If we know that our brains are not matured, quote
Mhm.
unquote, or reaching a level of uh, potentially better decision making,
Mhm.
and they also have lived a little bit longer in life, then
Mhm.
things should be in question, like the drinking age.
Yeah. Yeah.
If our teenagers are very emotional because they're going to function from a very emotional part of their brain, but we
Right.
also say that you could drink at 21, and then at 18, you're a young adult.
Mhm. Mhm.
What does that look like for them? What resources do we have to really support that?
Yeah.
Right, we have punishments for that, but we don't really see that we have
Yeah.
resources for that.
Yeah. How about that? We got punishments for it. Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, that stuff always fascinates me when we look at how those are put together, where we have punishments for things where the brain isn't fully developed that without realizing, well, maybe there's some level of development still needed for the individuals and people so that they can make, as you're saying, better decisions and not give the, and again, I get it. There's so many people pushing in the political levels and advocacy levels, pushing for, 18 to be considered a young adult, to be emancipated from parents and have all the work. And I get that. But along with that, there should be some more conversation had, specifically if the cognitive level in terms of better decision making doesn't really formulate until around the age of 24. And then we penalize them legally with harsh penalties because of, if they will, bad decisions. Like, and I don't want to get too deep into it, right? But like John Morant, he's only 23.
There you go. Yeah.
He doesn't fit within that demographic, like you're saying, of having proper, cognitive abilities yet. And so here he is, less than a month, less than 3 months. He's had 2 incidents where he's showing lapse of character.
Yeah.
But he's only 23.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
It fits definitely like with what you're saying. And so it's just interesting in that regard. But I wanted you to tease that out because I knew you had a lot to say about that. So I'm glad you were able to allow me to circle back to that, because I think that's just fascinating. When we talk about some of the challenges that our youth are facing, and some of the things we're putting in front of them, it's always as if to be blaming them. But they 18, 19, 20. Like they should know better. Well, no, maybe they shouldn't. Maybe they just don't. Because Lord knows that if this studies was done and you was interviewing me when I was 18, 19, 20, you'd be like, Jeff, bruh, why you do that? And I'd be sitting up there like, kid, I don't know.
That's it. That's the key word. I get a lot of parents, and the number one thing that they say is, I can't get nothing out of them. They tell me I don't know. And I say, like, that is okay. They honestly may not know.
Right.
The harm in not knowing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, how else are they going to figure it out? I don't understand how we expect them to. They should know better. We give our Black boys and men, they should know better. We are very harsh on them. And it's like, how else are they going to figure it out? So they should know better, but also they too young at the same time, right?
Yeah.
But like punishments and our certain systems don't really care about if they should know better or not. It is more so about right, skin color, how you look, and we just don't get those benefits of the doubts. It really is they should know better, and that has translated into, you name it, right? You can look at the same age kid across races and see the punishments for the same behavior. It look different. It won't even be a punishment the lighter you get. So
true indeed. And often it's like the society and the way laws and certain things are focused, it's like they take ignorance for lack of intelligence. And what I mean by that, just like what you were saying, if a 17, 18, 19-year-old says, I don't know, it's not because they're not intelligent. It's, if you will, the ignorance, which just simply means lack of knowledge. So they take the ignorance for meaning not intelligent. So when they say, I don't know, like you're saying, Ken, it's true. They don't know because they don't have the intellectual capacity to formulate a way to articulate why they did what they did. And even if they were to tell you that at that age, you'd be like, that don't make no sense. But that's all they know.
Yeah.
So they take their ignorance for meaning lack of intelligence, and then they penalize them for that. Yeah. And as you were saying too, the Black and brown boys and girls, they go through that the most. And I know in the scope of your work, you see that maybe more than you would like. So let's peel back and dig into that. And I think that as you have begun talking, you do this thing, what is it, Free Game Friday? And you share on Instagram some information that you can really, help out individuals. And I like that. And I've checked out quite a few of those. One of those you talked about was about relationships and how to build authentic relationships. And I want to have you talk a little bit about that, because the relationship context is important. And I'm not just talking about an intimate level of relationship, because that's one aspect and you can share on that as well. But I would like for you to tease out the aspect of relationships as a whole, because if our youth are understanding how to build authentic, sincere, true relationships, that can possibly mitigate some of the challenges that they're facing. Because I believe, and not just through the vein of mentoring, but just through the vein of socializing, if more relationships are built, then less of these challenges will be before our youth. So talk about your free game Friday when you talked about how to build authentic relationships, because I really like the way you stepped into that.
Yeah, so that that can get I just want to say this so that you can remind me to remember the feedback on it. But you asked me, like, if somebody come to me and they saying that they're whoever teen, whatever the case may be, or like they trying to help people process anger, how do I help them walk through it? And remind me to come back to that, because there's these 5 steps. But
Okay.
because that can be a part of the free game. But when it comes to um these authentic relationships, it's this thing that I learned about called, it's very simple, but it's called identifying with the subjective experience. So for us as adults, even when we trying to just connect with folks, it's this. So being able to really support someone and build an authentic relationship, uh, like, again, I love brain development. So one, it has to go in line with understanding brain development. And the first thing is safety.
Mm-hmm.
We have to do our best in making sure folks really feel safe, right? It's not even about the watered down term of safe space, right? This is a safe space, because I don't even actually know what that means anymore, to be honest with you. But it's really about the way in which our brain develops. Safety really is the first thing in which we need, and that is the first part of our brain. So like the survival, the fight, flight, freeze responses, all our survival things, safety helps speak to that. And the more that we understand how the brain develops, the more we can put things in place that
Mm-hmm.
we can get people to a point where they can make rational decisions, or they know how to understand, like, instead of them saying I don't know, they can tell you, like, I'm not in a place in my head right now to be able to communicate that to you, because I'm functioning from a very emotional place. But to have authentic and real relationships, it's called identifying with the subjective experience. So what that looks like is we have to be able to connect with whatever folks are saying that they are feeling, or whatever their reality is. So depending on if I'm talking to an organizational level, right, like doing a workshop with a board, or staff level, um, it is it's kind of like two things. So one thing I want to throw out there is called comparing conditions to understandings. So what that looks like is, a lot of times we all have our understandings of experiences or what that may look like. So for example, me and you know what pain, we have experienced pain before once in our life. And so in experiencing pain, if I may come to you and talk about, I'm going through something really painful, you may connect with that word painful and have your own ideas of what that looks like, and be like, yeah, man, I can relate because I went through A, B, and C, whatever. And you start talking about whatever you had experienced in relation to pain. But identifying with the subjective experiences is not so much, because it's not so much understanding pain from this objective reality. Is more so like whatever it is that they saying that they are experiencing, because for example, let's say we both experienced the earthquake at the same time, on the same day, in the same space. The way that I processed it and the way that you processed it might look completely different.
Right.
So even though, we both went through the same experience, same day, same time, same environment, what you saying that you feel is what, if I was helping you or trying to build something with you, is what I need to learn to understand, uh, and learn to accept. It has nothing to, I think a lot of times people need to make things make sense for them. It needs
Yeah.
to be understandable, and also in a comfortable way for them. And
Yeah,
it's
but
not
isn't that where that expression that comes in at? Make it make sense. You know what I mean? Isn't that so that they can understand it from their
yeah,
perspective and not yours? And I
yeah,
know that's like loosely used, and I kind of get what it means as far as it's used on the streets, but that's kind of how it's been over broadcast. Was that make it make sense, as if
yeah,
to say what you saying, Ken, doesn't make sense, so make it make sense to me.
yeah,
What if you can't explain no other way? Because that's
yeah,
your experience.
yeah, yeah. So we have to move from, you have to just really identify. So there has been studies done where, brain experts have saying, like, you can talk a person off of a ledge if you can learn to identify with what they are experiencing or saying that they are feeling. So that's when I come in and help maybe an organization go through this concept of comparing conditions with understandings. And I put understandings plural because we all have different understandings, but the goal is really to be able to, whatever the condition or the reality, so to say, of the people that you are serving or working or trying to help, your understanding needs to match their condition and
Mm-hmm.
reality.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't need to make sense for you,
Mm-hmm.
it needs to just match whatever it is that they saying are doing. So then you can be able to build the policy or build a program or build something that directly speaks to them, because it's going off of only what they saying. So this is what I'm saying I'm experiencing. This is what it feels like for me. And you get enough people, you can kind of come up with a theme, and then your understanding now is like, this is what it is because this is what these people are saying what it is, not because I made it make sense for me and then I put a new term on it and I called it diversity, equity, and inclusion, or I gave us a new word that we can use so we all can feel comfortable about.
Yeah, you're gonna get in trouble, Ken.
This work that we can be, that everybody wants to kind of say that they're doing, but like the words, they getting very tricky with the words, and it's really getting frustrating to the point where in certain areas, whether it's rural, in certain states, like the words, the letters SEL and the words social emotional learning, they don't even want to use those words, right? And now we got critical race theory and they banning books. So we get so caught up and tied on how to make people feel comfortable with things that folks who are actually experiencing this are never comfortable with.
Yeah, and that's where it's sliding down that slippery slope, because like you're saying that it's, you mentioned it a while ago in our conversation, the commodification of the emotions and anger of Black people in particular. So now it's to the point where they don't want certain language to be said because that makes them feel uncomfortable and having to deal with the reality of what we're feeling, right? And anybody who knows and watches the show, I have my angst against DEI as well. I think it's really a farce on a lot of different levels. And so for you to mention that, I'm like, kudos to my brother, he gets it. But again, it's an understanding there, and I get what they were initially trying to accomplish with it, but I think it fell so far from what it was truly looking to solve that it created another problem all in and of itself. But the reason why, again, I bring that out is, as you were saying, is just that the language that's now being used is always going to be, in, if you will, my words, a pacifistic way to be like, okay, we don't want to make anybody angry, so now we got to change it to be like this, and then we don't want to be, and it's all about sometimes the economics and the politics of it all, as opposed to the people that it's impacting. So yeah.
I couldn't put it no better way. I think I'm always gonna stay in trouble because I'm always pushing up against, not really pushing up against, but just putting things in question, and love having conversations with folks. Because they're not hard conversations. It's reality for a lot of us, and so it's not a hard conversation. It's not a hard thing to do.
But
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, but young brother, it is a hard conversation only because you're causing people to change, and those people are changing are the ones commodifying and benefiting off of Black pain, Black trauma. So now I know you're not afraid of the hard conversation, but I'm just kind of pushing back to you to say, yeah, it's hard, not for us, but for those we're talking to, because they don't want to change. You know what? If your work gets out, which is another seminal work, such as a marginalized voice for our good friend Reggie Williams, if your work and his work gets out there, then a lot of people, if you will, are going to be losing money.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not for the sake that you guys are trying to take money from them, but they're going to realize something. That light's going to come off. They're going to take a different approach to how they handle Black anger and managing and, or if you will, addressing it in a productive way that your work is doing. So yeah, it's always going to be those who come up against you with statistics, data, and all those other things trying to talk you down, like nah, because that change is going to be too detrimental to what they're trying to commodify. It's like in the sports industry, they don't want anything to change with these athletes because then you're taking away their commodity. You know, you take away their commodity and they get angry. Yeah. You know, you tell a player tells an owner, I can't play because I'm hurt. What? You can't play because you hurt? What? I'm paying all this. You know what I mean? So it's a commodification. So it's the same thing. You know, player tell the owner, you know, I'm not really feeling today because you know I'm just going through something. I can't figure out what it is, and it could be his anger because his emotion. What? You don't know how you feel? What? You get out there, you play. You know what I mean? Yeah. Always when that money's involved, they're not gonna hear this. It's a hard conversation, or is it eat? Nah. Get out there and play. You my money maker. But if someone like you comes on and be like, look, Mr. Owner, Jeff can't play. And I'm telling you why Jeff can't play, because Jeff is having to process this, and this is what Jeff has to go through. And his experience, you have to match the understanding. And they're gonna sit there looking at you like, bro, get out of my face. He got he got to play.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Man, we like I mean, you ask me, is modern day slavery.
Mm.
They are, AI is one of my favorite players, and I
Mhm.
would love to be AI. And I remember when he was talking about, that famous interview where he was like,
Practice.
practice. You talking about,
Yeah.
but one of the things that always gets overlooked is how he talked about, if I remember, I think he had lost his best friend,
Yeah. Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
like, he's trying to process that.
Hmm.
If y'all want this dude to be playing at his best all the time, you also have to understand, try your best to understand what it's like to be him. And he's telling you, right? Like, I'm a top player, and also, right, I'm dealing with what I'm dealing with. Yeah, worrying about practice. Who knows how he is trying to process it or manage it? But I see you want to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah. Because you brought up a good point, and I like the interview, and I always contextualize it because I do the same thing. People don't they look at the sound bites, and that's the society we live in, a sound bite society. So look at that sound bite, practice, practice, talking about practice, but they don't peel it back as he talks about his friend. But what I also wanted to ask you is that even in that, and I'm not blaming, I'm just trying to tease our conversation here. Even in that, is there a point or part of Allen that maybe never got the opportunity to know how to express properly at that moment? Yo, y'all talking about practice. My friend just got killed, and this is how I feel. This is because and I didn't, and I'm not going to even front. I didn't see the whole interview. I did see the beginning when he talked about his friend, but I didn't see the total complete end. So I don't know if he talked about how he felt. But I'm just saying to say, if he didn't, would that be something that we could look at and say, yo, yeah, he didn't get a chance to say, yo, y'all talking about practice, but this is how I feel. I'm hurt. I'm sad. You know what I mean? And do we think as black men, I'll just say this, as black men and black boys, we miss that, or we can't do that? We can just talk about, yo, you talking about practice? My friend got killed. We talking about practice? But never saying, yo, we talking about practice, my friend got killed. And I'm sad, yo. I just ain't got it.
No, you're right. Unfortunately, a lot of top performers feel like that.
Yeah.
They just do. I know, even if we talk people who maybe be like a little bit more tangible to us. I had worked with a white Jewish lawyer one time.
Mm-hmm.
He passed a bar in like Philly and Jersey,
Mm.
and he was dealing with some trauma, PTSD. He had got robbed, but he was afraid of getting help for it because he said, like, if people find out about this, right, they're gonna question my abilities to be a lawyer still, which also now is going to put his, his life at risk, his finances, how you gonna take care of his family, and so. Yeah, I think a lot of just individuals, but top performers, they feel like they definitely cannot express what is very real to them, because then in question is going to be, well, you can't play then.
Yeah.
You essentially you're not good enough to play no more. And
Right.
so if you have an opinion or you have a feeling, they do it a lot of times. Right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't play. And it's not that you can't play. The thing that you love to do, the thing that's helping you manage your emotions, that thing that's helping you fight the trauma, it's that we're not going to pay you, because that doesn't serve your feelings. Is not paying our pot, like it's not fulfilling.
Yeah, that's true. I like to see your feelings. And I'm laughing not at the situation for sure, but laughing at the stark reality of what you said is true. We ain't paying you for your feelings.
Yeah, man.
Your feelings ain't gonna do nothing for me. So you go out there and you play. So wow, I like the way you unpack that, my brother. So two things before we get ready to wrap up. I want you to definitely go to the 5 steps, but also real quick before you go to the 5 steps, there's a level of, if you will, the codifying of the emotions of people, and what I mean by that is that it's never really taken as being serious. It's just to the point where they're looking at, you know, well, they're feeling a certain way, so we give them this time off, and maybe they'll come back. And it's pacifistic in a lot of ways, without ever really drilling down into, wow, maybe Jeff needs, and not help as if to say something's wrong, but help as if to say, help you get along in life. So, what's your thoughts on that? And then after you delve into that, you can talk about your 5 steps that we wanted to circle back to.
Yeah, so when I do presentations sometimes, like my last one was at the School Social Worker Association. They have a national conference every year. One of the call it low hanging fruit that I have people. I do is I'm up there and I'm presenting, and then in the middle of my presentation, I'd be like, "Hold on, right quick. I just want to check in with y'all. How y'all feeling? I need somebody to speak up. People will speak up. How y'all feeling?" The whole room would say, "I'm good." Pretty much they're good. Typically, what we do is I check in with you, Jeff. How you doing? You're like, "Yeah, man, I'm good." All right, man, that's good. And then I keep on going about my day. What I tell them is, you gotta, if you're gonna ask somebody what's going on, how you feel, how's whatever, if you do not have the capacity to do that, and take that extra, I don't care if it's a few seconds, an extra minute to really unpack what that looks like, don't ask them that, because now it's just becoming a formality, and that's why we overlook a lot of feelings and things of what it is. Because when I ask you what's going on, how you feeling, you say you good, and I just let it be that. Good is not even a feeling. We know that you can tell me you good, and you could also be on your last dollar. But you could be telling me you good, and you also really are feeling like things are where you may want them to be, and life is going for your way. And so I tell them, like, there's a different level of connection we have to start doing, getting back to like just valuing, human and dignity worth. And so if you're going to, really, and I think to get to your question, that will help us allow to be able to stop overlooking things that, uh, we are deeming as small, or it's not that big of an issue until it is. Because then once it is a big deal, it's like, well, at that point, you need some sort of, institution to step in. Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Because my brother, Dr. James Jones, he has a book. It's titled "I'm All Right." It talks about the reflex that response is engendering. When, similar to like you were saying, "How you doing?" is "I'm good." His book is on the premises that that's just a reflex response, despite whatever we're going through. How you doing, Jeff? I'm all right, but really you're not. And as Black men, we need to be able to, deal with some of those underlying challenges emotionally that we're going through and trauma that we're trying to heal from, to be able to truly express how we're feeling. And then another friend of mine, Dr. Lawrence Aja, he said instead of asking people how are they doing or how they're feeling, he says, "How's your heart? How's your heart? And how's your spirit?" Those would be the two questions: how's your heart and how's your spirit? And those he found to be really engendering questions that really peel back from them to share something of an emotional level, not in depth, but at least something on an emotional level. Because you can't say, "How's your spirit?" "I'm good." No, you got to give a little bit more context to it. So, yeah. So it is important in that regard, but appreciate you sharing on that too. But yeah, let's get into your 5 steps, bro, as we wrap up, and then you can let the viewing and listening audience know what's coming up next and how they can reach out to you.
Okay, real quick, you did mention, right, like, I want to push back on the one small piece that you said about how a lot of times they put the onus on us. It's up to us to be able to process, unpack, and right, and speak up about our emotions. I also want to put the ownership on the places that say that they do support us, whether that is school or education, to be able to make these spaces really do. Because if I speak up, it's not just a pat on the back or see me after class, or like, you'll be good, or we'll shake it off, or you're strong. We always got to be strong and resilient. So I just want to push back on that. Like, these spaces also need to be really willing and open to do things that they say they're going to do or create for us. But these 5 steps. Let me see if I can remember them correctly. My book will obviously talk about them in more detail. But the first thing that I have people do, especially when they say like they're just trying to manage their anger and they feel like they're too angry and it's not really getting them in a situation that they want to be in, they feel like they're a high head. The first thing that I have them do, and I may get the order a little bit because the first 3 are kind of similar, but the first thing I have them do is to really just pause. So you're in some sort of a heated situation, or you feel like your anger is about to get the best of you, if you can be this aware, I always tell them, pause. Do not make any decisions, choices at that point in time at all. Like, don't even react to people, because you're not going to respond to them. You're just going to react. So just pause for those whatever amount of time that you need. The second step, they kind of go hand in hand, but to help you stay present, because a lot of times when we have deep emotions starting to come back up, it's usually one of 2 things. It's something about our past that is triggering it, or we are fearing for our future. And so that means we're not in the present moment. And so stay in the present moment. And one way you can stay in the present moment is like, be very, like, I tell them, like, think about what it feels like to have your toes, your feet in socks, like wiggle your toes right now, or like think about how it feels for the wind to hit your skin in this moment, or like your draws to touch your skin. Like that is very here and now things that are just very present, and they can't really be put to the past or the future. And so the first step, pause. The second one would be to stay in the present by just acknowledging what is in the present. What does it feel like for your shirt to be on your skin, your feet and socks right now?
Mm-hmm.
Then the third thing will be to start to figure out or pay attention to where do you feel the tension at.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times if we can pinpoint these characteristics or these signs, we will be able to know when we about to potentially lose it or reach that point of like regret or no return. So for me, my neck gets tight. I start trying to crack my neck a little bit, or I start, like just playing with my fingers or cracking my knuckles. Recognize where that tension is in your body. And then the fourth thing, at that point, you'll be able to respond to whatever the situation is, and hopefully be able to respond from the best parts of yourself. I'm going over pretty fast, but then the fifth thing is, as men, as human beings, as Homo sapiens, we still have this energy that we need to get off. And in our communities, right, we see it look a lot different. But what I've learned is that, right, you can see this very clear in animals. And let's say you watch a video on like a gazelle getting chased by a lion or something. If it escapes, watch how it trembles and shakes afterwards. And it's almost like it's shaking off the trauma.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You got to do the same thing, right? You still got this energy left off. You got to get that out of you. That don't mean don't go put your hands on nobody or do anything like that. For me, I get out. I go run. I work out. Like it needs to be something that physical that literally moves your body, right? I don't care if it's dancing, but it needs to be something that moves your body, because that's a natural response to you. That's a natural bodily response to you processing the heavy emotion and trauma. And so shake that off is what the fifth step is really called, just to be able to get that excess energy out.
Cool. I appreciate that. And thanks for breaking down those 5 steps. And, as you said, you were going through them with a little brevity there. But if anybody wants to go into depth about those 5 steps, give them information about how they can get your book, what you're up to next, and, how they can stay in contact with you to get the support and service that you have to offer, man, because you're really, really, really doing some dynamic work, man. You've done some powerful workshops. You got things lined up on your website where people can take advantage of outside of the book. So give our viewers or listeners that insight info, man, and again, how you can get their hands on the book, and we can wrap up for this time on Community Voice.
Yeah, so I am very protective of this book, and I'm gonna be working on more, but because I know that it is a real resource for folks. It's filled with a bunch of resources, and so the only way you can get it is through my website, because I like to be able to. People who have boarded will know it is only like a 2-question form, but it asks like, what your title is, but it also asks, is it okay if I reach out to you to check in to see if there's anything else that you may need, if there's any other resource, what did you take from it? And that is my way of, building a community and staying in contact. It's not just about a purchase. It's about, there are people who are really looking for help and resources. And so if that's okay, I will follow up with you randomly, may just send you an email and just pop in and be like, how is the book going for you? So you can get it from my website, which is bourneanew.com. So my last name is Bourne, Bourne. Anew is ANEW.com. And some things that I really do is, yeah, man, it's just professional speaking. And you could call them like workshops. Sometimes they call it retreats or presentations. But there are a lot on things like cultural competency or educational equity, or just really being able to, how do we support the people that we say we want to support in a healthy, in a holistic way. And everything I do, man, I always like include wellness in what I do. So I don't just talk about it. So I have folks in sessions, we doing deep breathing. And we always going to talk about the body and the brain to help it make sense. So yeah, that's some things. I would be in Michigan in June, presenting at this Black Boys and Men Summit. So yeah, things like that is in the works. But Jeff, I definitely appreciate connecting with you, man. You was a very genuine, real dude when I met you at the bookshop here in West Philly. And so this was just a a great opportunity to have a real conversation with a real human being. You know, a lot of people talk a lot.
Yeah.
And they want the ostentatious view, and right, I don't get that from you at all. So yeah, I just appreciate this opportunity, man.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you as well, good brother. Thanks for being on Community Voice. This will not be the last time, good brother, because we're going to stay connected with the work that you're doing and the work that I'm doing. So we're going to continue to make an impact in the city and across the nation as we collaborate in the work that you're doing. And for those who are listening and watching, we'll have in the show notes information on how you can get your hands on the book, and also have Kenneth come out and do a workshop and provide a speaking session to you and be able to let you know how you can manage your emotions and your anger for you and the young people in your community. So Kenneth, good brother, thanks for being a Community Voice, man, and we'll have you back on again. Appreciate you, good brother.
Yeah, appreciate you.
So again, everyone, that was Kenneth L. Bourne, founder of Bourne Anew, a program that helps you to be able to deal with your anger and manage it in a way that can be productive and successful in society, and for youth in particular, but for all people across the board. So thanks again for tuning in to Community Voice. This is Jeff Jones, and thanks for listening and tuning in. And so remember, if it's happening in your community, we need to hear your voice. Peace, and we are out.